Hi there, and welcome back. So before I get into the main body of the video, I thought I would address a few things. I have been tweaking the channel over the last week. I got some new kit and equipment, like a new mic, so things might sound a little bit more crisp. I was working on a new intro and creating new stills last week. Got a new editing software that I'm still trying to get to grips with. At the moment, everything's just trial and error. I'm just trying to work out what I like and what I don't like. My new intro is okay, but knowing me, I will probably change it in a few weeks. But anyway, I've been wanting to talk about this topic for a little while now, but I've never been quite sure how to articulate my thoughts surrounding it. I've been letting it mull over in my head over the last couple of weeks, and I think I've worked out a decent way of conveying my thoughts on the issue in a fair and well-reasoned manner. I'm pretty sure this video will still upset some people, but I want to be honest about how I feel about things. So I think it's fair to say at this point that as far as political discussion on the internet goes, it can be a bit of a shit show. On YouTube, Twitter, any number of social media platforms, blogs, websites, articles, you name it, and you'll probably see some form of political shit-slinging between one political perspective to another. Well, what do I mean by shit-slinging? Well, I named this video Playground Politics for a reason. When I see people screaming at each other, calling each other names and labeling each other this, that, and the next thing, honestly, it reminds me of little kids in a playground, screaming at each other, getting upset with each other, and throwing tantrums, calling each other names, not listening to what the other person's saying, until eventually one of them storms off in a huff because someone went too far. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to tone police anyone or tell anybody how they should conduct themselves. You have no obligation to change your behaviour based on the things I've said. I'm just sharing my opinion on it and why I think this sort of conduct isn't helpful. Now throwing insult and label is definitely not a one-sided issue. At the more progressive end of the spectrum, this usually manifests itself as people constantly throwing out terms like sexist, racist, homophobe, transphobe, any number of phobias or isms, to be quite honest. I think a lot of the more well-meaning people in the progressive movement are just concerned about issues such as racism, sexism, and any kind of bigotry. They don't want to see these things propagated, and they don't want to see these things thriving. I'm much the same myself. It's probably why I spent the entirety of my teenage years as an SJW progressive. The problem lies in seeing this stuff everywhere, and misapplying these labels where it's not applicable. Speaking from my own personal experiences as a progressive or ex-SJW or whatever you want to say, I would often throw these labels at people when they said something that made me feel uncomfortable, had bothered me in some sort of way, or I just didn't have a decent rebuttal to what they'd said. Now, I don't think this is everyone, of course, but I do think there's a propensity within the progressive movement to use these labels flippantly. Now, this can be a problem. I know people have said this in the past, but overusage of these labels has rendered them almost meaningless. Actually, I'm getting to the point now on Twitter when somebody throws out the term racist or sexist or any of these sort of buzzwords, I barely even flinch anymore. I almost expect it if I say something that might trigger somebody or bother someone. There are sexists and racists and bigots of all sorts out there, and being able to actually call them out for what they are is important. But when you start applying these labels willy-nilly, honestly, it really undermines the meaning of these words, waters them down. However, progressives are not the only ones I have a bone to pick with when it comes to this issue. People on my side, so to speak, often throw out ad hominems like mad. They're constantly used. And as far as I can tell, they're used for much the same reason. Whenever someone's put in a corner and they've not got a decent rebuttal to the thing that's been said to them, they'll just throw out an insult. They'll just call somebody an SJW or a fag or whatever else. Now, of course, somebody being called an SJW is hardly as impactful as them being called a racist. For starters, you can't lose your job from being called an SJW. But this doesn't mean I give it a pass. My main issue with all of this, on both sides, is that it's not conducive to a well-meaning and respectful conversation. Things are fairly polarised right now, and throwing labels and insults at each other doesn't help. Now, I understand this to a point. Sometimes people are just shitposting and looking for a laugh. Other times it's out of frustration and anger at the situation or the absurdity of the things they're seeing. I don't think this stuff's ever going to stop. I think there's always going to be people out there who will air their grievances with each other in unsavoury manners. There's not much that can be done about that. What does bother me though is the disingenuous nature of some people. People who go on and on about wanting to have an honest and open discussion with people on the other side, but then insist on throwing labels at them or calling them this, that and the next thing, getting into huge arguments and just generally being obnoxious. Do these people genuinely expect people to believe that they're looking for an honest and open discussion when they conduct themselves in this manner? Now I know I've waffled on, so I want to make the point of this video very clear. This isn't me saying that I think everybody needs to change the way they act. I'm well aware of the fact that a lot of things are never going to change. I'm very aware of the fact that there's going to be ideological rifts between people. A lot of people struggle to get past this. A lot of people struggle to see past another person's beliefs. Shit-slinging, name-calling, playground politics, whatever you want to call it, isn't the only way we can do things. And in my personal opinion, I don't think it's the best way to do things. I quite like to talk to people who have a difference of opinion with me, and I've had some really good discussions with people who I fundamentally disagree with. I can think of 2 names right off the top of my head. Brittany Simons and Brad Savvy. These are 2 people who I fundamentally disagree with on a lot of things. But I've had some lovely conversations with them. They've been kind and respectful in their criticisms of me and the things I've said, and I like to think that I've been the same with them. But most of the time I just ask them questions to try and understand where they're coming from. But most of the time when we've had a heated discussion or disagreement, I've left the conversation feeling like I could talk to them again. And not only that, but I've come away from this discussion with something more than I came in with. It might not have changed my mind, but at least I'm learning something, and I hope it's the same for them. This is the kind of discourse I want to see more of. People being able to talk to each other, argue with each other, and see past their differences. And people being able to have heated debates, but leave them in a civil manner. And not hold grudges against people for having a difference in opinion. I think that's a much more mature and adult way to deal with things. And if pundits on the internet want to be taken seriously, they want to be trusted and they want to be seen as reliable sources of information, then I think we do need to conduct ourselves in a slightly better manner. Now you can accuse me of tone policing or whatever else all you like, but that's just how I feel about things. But as usual, if you had anything you want to say about this video, you agree with me, you disagree with me, then leave a comment down below. This allows me to improve my content where necessary, it lets me see what you guys think of the things I'm saying, and it gives us the opportunity to have a discourse with one another, which at the end of the day is the most important thing. And of course, you guys look after yourselves.